Today, we are diving into one of the most unusual prophecies you'll find anywhere. We're talking about a strange command, a super long and mysterious name, and a 2-year countdown to war. And it's all packed into just 4 ancient verses from the book of Isaiah. Let's unpack it. Okay, so imagine you're the prophet Isaiah, living around 734 BC, and you get this instruction. First, you gotta find a giant scroll. Then you need to write on it in plain, everyday language this mouthful of a name. Mahar Shalal Hashbaz. You'd have to be thinking, what in the world does that mean? Right? That's the first question you've got to ask. This isn't just a bunch of random sounds. See, in the ancient world, names meant everything. And this one, well, this one is the core of the entire message. It's not just a name, it's basically a headline. So here's the big reveal. The name is the prophecy. Mahar Shalal Hashbaz literally translates from Hebrew to plunder speeds, spoil hastens. If you're walking by and you see that on a giant scroll, the message is crystal clear. Destruction is coming, and it is coming fast. That first verse tells us this wasn't some private note in Isaiah's journal. Nope. He was told to write it on a great roll, basically making it a formal, public billboard for everyone to see. Then, as we get to verse 2, this prophecy becomes something like a legally binding document. To make it totally official, God tells Isaiah to bring in witnesses to, timestamp it and prove that he wrote it down before it happened. And he didn't just grab any 2 guys off the street. Isaiah called on Uriah the priest and Zechariah, son of Jeberechiah. These were prominent figures, persons of rank, whose signatures would have carried some serious legal weight. Now, this is where it gets really cool. There might be a hidden layer of meaning here. Some scholars think these witnesses were chosen specifically for what their names mean. Uriah means Jah is my light, and Zechariah means Jah will remember. Jah, of course, is a name for God. So you have this prophecy of destruction, but it's legally stamped with the ideas of God's light and his remembrance. Okay, so the prophecy starts out on a scroll, but it doesn't stay there. It's about to move from something abstract and written into something far more personal and real. In verse 3, this warning is about to become a living, breathing person. The story takes a really intimate turn here. Isaiah's wife, who is called the prophetess, conceives and has a son. And this little boy isn't just a footnote to the prophecy. He's about to become the sign itself. And boom, there it is. This is where it all connects. The Lord gives a direct command in verse 3. Give your son the exact same name that you wrote on that giant public scroll. Just think about it. Every time someone called for this child, they'd be repeating the prophecy out loud. Destruction is imminent. And that brings us to the climax in verse 4. The child isn't just a living sign. He is a living timer. His own childhood development becomes the ticking clock for a huge geopolitical event. The terms that are laid out in verse 4 are just incredibly specific. Before this baby, Mahar Shalal Hashbaz, can even learn how to say Dada or Mama, the king of Assyria is going to sweep in and plunder Damascus and Samaria. So how long does it take for a little kid to learn to say father or mother? About a year, maybe 2. This means the prophecy came with a very short, very specific deadline. This wasn't some vague, someday in the future prediction. It was an immediate threat with a roughly 2-year countdown. And here's the kicker. History tells us this is exactly what happened. The prophecy was given around 734 BC. And sure enough, by 732 BC, the Assyrian Empire had marched down, conquered Damascus, and started taking apart the northern kingdom of Israel, just like the prophecy said, and right on schedule. But this one child wasn't an isolated sign. To really get the full picture, you have to zoom out. Mahar Shalal Hashbaz was one of Isaiah's sons, and it turns out the names of all his children worked together to form a bigger, more layered message for the entire nation. Just look at this. Isaiah's sons were like living billboards for God's plan. You have Mahar Shalal Hashbaz, a warning of judgment. But then you have his son Emmanuel, whose name means God is with us, a promise of presence. And his other son, Shir Jashub, whose name means a remnant will return, a message of hope. So when you put all the names together, you get the complete message, the whole story. It's this powerful narrative of warning, promise, and ultimate hope. Yes, destruction is imminent, but God is still with his people, and because of that, a remnant will return.
It's just a fascinating look at how names in the ancient world weren't just labels. They were signs, they were prophecies, they were entire messages, which kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If your name, your identity, was a message to the world, what would it say?